wasn't, you know, I think what happened with adjudication here, and the lawyers will probably kill me, we handed it over to the lawyers and it became a really legally heavy process. And in fairness to those guys who came to sit on the CAP panels at the start, they all said it had become such a legally heavy process with all those files. I mean, I've done loads of them here, and they turn up in taxis and they've got boxes of files, and they have legal clerks who are, you know, superbly clever people who know exactly where every bit of paper is, but there are hundreds and hundreds of files that get produced for it. I mean, it's voluminous in a way. You just, and you know, 500,000 plus is cheap. I've spent tens of millions.
Right. Martin, we'll be on that.
I ought to put my cards on the table and say I am a big fan of adjudication, having been involved in its development from the very start here in the UK. But Sue, you're absolutely right in the sense that adjudication has become, in a lot of cases, much more than simply what it was set out to be, which was a very simple and quick process for resolving disputes. And that's, you know, sometimes people blame the lawyers. You know, the lawyers came in and they turned it into kind of a mini litigation process. But it's not always like that. And adjudication, when it's done right, is a very good and very useful process. And it's still hugely popular here in the UK. RSS appointed somewhere in the region of 1,300 adjudicators last year alone. So that shows that it's a very popular and very useful process. What I think in terms of its relationship with CAP is that a lot of issues are going to adjudication unnecessarily. You know, they get into that point where they can only be adjudicated. And what the CAP process does is prevents matters that don't really need to end up in that adversarial process from being resolved earlier and dealing with them quicker and better. And that only cases that really need to go to adjudication end up in adjudication. That's the objective. But it's about options as well. You know, you need to have an option. And in the UK, adjudication is a statutory right that you can utilize, but it's not an obligation. You don't have to. And if there's something else that parties can use that's more useful to them and more beneficial and can maintain things like the relationship between the parties because it's non-adversarial, then there should be an option for them to use. And that's where CAP comes in.